Greetings again from Philatelic Pursuits. My name is Mark Joseph Yoakum, and what I have for you today is a bit of breaking news. Thus far in 2023, Canada Post has been uncharacteristically quiet with regards to their stamp schedule, with only 3 issues released as of early April. They've been mum on later stamps, only tossing out a few hints, but nothing concrete. That changed today, the end of the second week of April, with the release of Canada Post's Quarterly Details Bulletin, issue number 2 for 2023. The formal press release should appear shortly. In this issue of Details, Canada Post published information and images of 2 upcoming releases, one for April and one at the beginning of May. Both of these are now available for pre-order in the Canada Post web shop. I also have preliminary information on 2 additional issues for May, with dates provided by reliable third-party sources. More on these at the end of this new issue announcement. The first set of new stamps will be released in just a few days' time, on the 18th of April in Vancouver, British Columbia. This is the Animal Mothers and Babies issue, just in time for Earth Day and Canada's version of Mother's Day. These are a pair of permanent domestic-grade stamps available self-adhesive in a booklet of 6, as well as a miniature sheet of 2 gum stamps with the same designs. According to Canada Post's webpage on the issue, the stamps celebrate the bond between animal mothers and their babies. Parenting in the wild is a tough job. Some animal mothers and fathers are always on duty, feeding their babies and protecting them from predators. In their aquatic habitats, where threats can come from both above and below, the sea otter, Enhydra lutris, and the red-necked grebe, Pondiceps grisagina, serve as floating havens for their vulnerable offspring. Canada Post has a long-standing tradition of showcasing Canadian wildlife and using stamps to raise awareness of the impacts of human activity on animal populations. These 2 species face many threats posed by humans. As illustrated on the first stamp, mature female sea otters give birth to a single pup every year for life. The sole caregiver, mother otters float on their backs to feed, groom, and cradle their young. The species, once hunted for its luxurious fur, was extirpated from British Columbia, but has made a gradual comeback since being reintroduced. It is currently listed as being of special concern in Canada. Red-necked grebes take turns incubating their eggs and carrying the chicks, which climb onto their parents' backs immediately after hatching. The monogamous pairs sometimes divide the brood to share feeding responsibilities. Found across most of Canada, these water birds winter off the Pacific and Atlantic coasts. Like sea otters, they face threats such as oil spills, as well as loss of their freshwater nesting habitat from other human disturbances. Designer Meredith McKinley of Halifax-based Egg Design chose embroidery as the basis for the design because of the association that fabrics have with feelings of hominess and familial love, and because needlework lends texture to the animal's fur and feathers. Tagagami Anishinaabe artist Caroline Brown created the images on the stamps using a combination of traditional embroidery and beadwork. In the Details article, McKinley explained that embroidery is so textural, it seemed an ideal way to show the fur of the sea otter and feathers of the red-necked grebe. Brown was an avid stamp collector as a child. Her First Nations heritage has fostered a strong connection with nature, and she stated that the project was a labor of love for her. She said, "We gave the images a storybook quality and a sense of motion to make people curious about the worlds in which these creatures live." There were 200,000 of the booklet stamps produced, printed by offset lithography. There were 7,000 copies of the 2 stamped gum miniature sheets printed using offset lithography. I will mention here that Canada Post uses the terminology souvenir sheet for this and similar releases. On Philatelic Pursuits and elsewhere, I tend to use this term miniature sheet for items that contain 2 or more stamps up to about 10, and the term souvenir sheet for items that have just a single stamp in a decorative border or selvage. Most European collectors will refer to either item as a stamp block. The release date of the 18th of April was chosen for the Animal Mothers and Babies issue so that the stamps would be released in advance of Earth Day, which is the 22nd of April. Canadians are encouraged to take positive action on Earth Day on environmental issues, including the impacts of climate change and pollution on species such as those featured on these stamps. Because they celebrate the bond between animal mothers and their young, the stamps were also issued several weeks ahead of Mother's Day. The cancellation location is Vancouver, since British Columbia is home to Canada's only remaining sea otter population. The second stamp issue in this announcement will be released on May the 1st to raise funds for the Canada Post Community Foundation, which supports Canadian children and youth. Since 2012, the CPCF has supported more than 1,100 community organizations that bring positive change to Canadian children. The theme of the stamp is the way in which stories and storytelling enhance the lives of children. The illustration by Don Belial depicts a diverse group of animals reading a story together. It reminds us of the joy that stories and storytelling bring, as well as the creativity and curiosity they inspire. For every booklet of 10 stamps purchased, a donation of $1 Canadian will go directly to fund local and national nonprofit groups that assist Canadian children and youth in writing the next chapter of their lives. There were 250,000 of these stamps printed with a 10-cent surcharge on each stamp. The stamp's first day of issue postmark is from Ottawa, Ontario. 8,000 copies of the official first day cover were produced. Next, we have 2 not yet officially announced issues. Canada Post has been referring to a stamp commemorating King Charles III for quite some time, simply as, quote, a new stamp for a new sovereign, end quote. I've heard from 2 separate but reliable third-party sources that this will be a definitive stamp released in conjunction with Aurapex, a stamp show billed as Ottawa's National Stamp Exhibition. This will be held at the Nepean Sportsplex on Saturday the 6th of May, which happens to be the new monarch's coronation day. Sounds pretty plausible to me. Finally, the new issue of Details mentions another May release with the hint, a century-and-a-half milestone. I have heard from the same sources mentioned above that this will be a commemorative marking the 150th anniversary of the formation of the police force that later became the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They were originally established on May 23, 1873, and it's highly likely that the issue will be released on the actual anniversary date. For now, this is the date that I am listing on the Philatelic Pursuits website. So far this year, I've only written 1 full article detailing a Canada Post release. That covered the January Black History Month stamp issue. I will put together a Part 2 article later this month covering the stamps up to and including April's issues. Not every new issue announcement really warrants a breaking news tag, but I felt this one did. In recent months, I've noticed many Canadian collectors have been voicing their displeasure over Canada Post's perceived silence in regards to their 2023 stamp program. Forums and Facebook pages dedicated to Canadian philately have many complaints over what is seen as a disregard for collectors, not only in the length of time between announcements, but in such matters as the lack of actual first day of issue ceremonies, the stamps not always being available at post offices, clerks unaware that their city had even been chosen as official first day of issue city, and more. Now that we have 4 new issues to look forward to, I hope that these complaints will lessen and that we can all move on to just enjoying these wonderful designs. Don't forget to visit the Philatelic Pursuits blog for more on these issues and others. Thank you for watching.